Lieutenant General Gregory Guillot to be Commander of U.S. Northern Command, and Lieutenant General Stephen Whiting to be Commander of U.S. Space Command. Gentlemen, thank you for your decades of service to the nation, and congratulations. General Guillot, I would like to welcome your wife, Carolyn, daughter Elizabeth, and son Mark, who I know is proudly watching his father. General Whiting, I'd like to welcome your wife, Tammy, daughter Allie, and the loved ones that are here today supporting your efforts. I think you've got your son, parents, and in-laws who are proudly watching from afar, and also to commend them. We thank you, your families, for the continued support, because I think we all recognize no one serves alone, and their efforts and your efforts have brought us to this day. I'd also like to note that you're both graduates of the Air Force Academy, class of 1989, and despite that, we're holding this hearing. And I'm sure many of your classmates are cheering you all from afar. I will at this point ask that the remainder of my statement be included in the record and yield to Senator Wick for his opening remarks. We've started early, and we start the floor procedures about 10, so we want to expedite as much as we can. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too welcome these witnesses and their families and friends. We look forward to an excellent question and answer session today, and as the chair has indicated, we have much to do on the floor, and so I will ask that my statement be included in its entirety in the record at this point.
Well, let me first recognize General Guillot for your opening statement, and then General Whiting. General Guillot, please. Could you turn your microphone on, please, General, and bring it as close as possible?
Okay. Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear today. I'm deeply honored to be nominated to serve as the Commander of United States Northern Command and North American Aerospace Defense Command, and testify next to my Air Force Academy classmate, Lieutenant General Stephen Whiting. I'd like to begin by thanking President Biden, Secretary Austin, and Chairman Milley for their trust and confidence, and I'm grateful to the Canadian leadership for their endorsement of my nomination as well. I'd also like to thank General Glenn Van Herk and his wife Marilyn for their tremendous 36 years of service and example. I would not be here without the constant support of my family. Caroline, my incredible wife of 34 years, and our daughter Elizabeth, a cyber policy professional, are here with me today. Our son Mark can't be here as he's pursuing a bachelor's in nursing, and he better be in class right now. Caroline has held our family together through countless deployments and 20 moves and developed our children into outstanding young adults. All three are not only supportive of me and those with whom I serve and their families, but also strongly support our mission. For the last 34 years, I've served alongside extraordinary Americans, allies, and partners across the globe. During that time, I've been fortunate to learn from the finest leaders, mentors, non-commissioned officers, and troops in the world. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge the most influential mentors I've had, my parents, Reb, a career Air Force officer and Vietnam veteran, and Susan, who handled the challenges of military family life with strength and humor. Also shaping me have been my operational experience and leadership assignments in 3 different combatant commands, including commanding all joint and coalition air power in the Middle East. If confirmed, I will humbly bring the benefit of these experiences gained in combat and in peace to appropriately, energetically, and decisively lead the women and men of NORAD and NORTHCOM in the defense of our great homeland. The United States, Canada, and our allies and partners must address an extraordinarily complicated and quickly changing strategic environment. Competitors can hold North America at risk in multiple domains and are increasing both their capability and capacity to strike the homeland at a rate far exceeding the pace seen just a few years ago. While NORAD and NORTHCOM are distinct commands, they share complementary missions that are more vital today than ever. The success of both commands in defending the homeland is only possible with strong interagency collaboration as well as close alliances and partnerships. If confirmed, I will remain committed to expanding those already strong relationships in order to ensure the command's constant readiness to deter aggression and defend our nation. I will also commit to establishing and maintaining partnerships with the National Guard Bureau, state, interagency partners to conduct NORTHCOM's vital defense support of civil authorities' role during catastrophic disasters and other periods of national need. Likewise, if confirmed, I will be a strong advocate for ongoing NORAD and NORTHCOM efforts to improve domain awareness and global integration of operations, plans, and data. Our competitors' advanced long-range weapons systems and delivery platforms pose challenges from within and even well beyond NORAD and NORTHCOM operational boundaries. Therefore, it will be important that I work closely with other combatant commanders to deliver an integrated, layered, and seamless defense of our homeland. Finally, if confirmed, I assure this committee that I will always provide my candid assessment and my best military judgment regarding NORAD and NORTHCOM missions. Homeland defense is fundamental mission of the Department of Defense, and I can think of no greater honor than being nominated to lead the commands responsible for that vital mission. Thank you for your support of the United States Armed Forces and for the honor of appearing before this committee. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much, General Whiting, please.
Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee and the American people today. I'm humbled to be the President's nominee to command United States Space Command. I'm grateful to the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for their confidence and support. And I'm pleased to testify beside my U.S. Air Force Academy classmate and friend, Lieutenant General Greg Guillot. I also want to thank the current commander of U.S. Space Command, General Jim Dickinson, and his wife, Angie, for their leadership of the command over the past 3 years and their personal friendship to Tammy and I. I'm proud to have my family and some dear friends here with me today. First and foremost, my wife of 34 years. Tammy has been my best friend and greatest strength during 19 moves. She's an incredible wife, mom, friend, entrepreneur, and business owner. We also have our daughter, Allie, in attendance. She finished her master's degree last summer and is now a tech writer for a Silicon Valley software company, but living in Nashville, Tennessee. Supporting us in spirit are our son, Chase, and his wife, Olivia. Chase is a youth minister, also living in Nashville, and his terrific wife, Olivia, is a first-grade public school teacher there in the Nashville schools. Chase had previously committed to accompanying the members of his youth group to support a church overseas, and he is appropriately taking care of those kids and ensuring they get back to the United States safely. Tammy and I are immensely proud of our children and the role they have played in our military career. Joining us virtually are my parents, Larry and Helen Whiting. My dad was also a career Air Force officer and Vietnam veteran, and my mom is a retired public school teacher from Mississippi. My in-laws, Ken and Joan Pressler, are also joining us virtually, and Tammy's dad is also a retired Air Force officer. And Tammy's mom is simply the glue who holds our family together. Both sets of our parents have established legacies of service to and love of our country that Tammy and I try to live up to every day. Finally, we have 5 dear friends with us today, who have adopted us along the way. David and Carmen Bell, Steve Watkins, and Missy and Levi Bonas. No doubt our military career has been undergirded by the strength and support of our family and friends, and thank you for allowing me to acknowledge them. Today, international space competition has become increasingly complex. China and Russia are rapidly fielding counter-space capabilities to disrupt our access to space, and China is swiftly making its own military forces space-enabled. These strategic competitors' irresponsible actions and assertive posturing have transformed space into a contested domain. All the while, space continues to become more congested as more and more actors, including commercial industry, are launching an increasing number of satellites to leverage the advantages space provides. The increasing complexity of our strategic competition in space has resulted in real threats to national space power and the critical infrastructure which supports it. U.S. Space Command's purpose is to protect U.S. interests by preserving freedom of action in space and providing critical support to the rest of the Joint Force, our allies, all while protecting the Joint Force and allied militaries from space-enabled attack. To say that more plainly, it is the moral responsibility of United States Space Command to ensure that the Joint Force, the nation, and our allies have access to the space capabilities they have become dependent on over the decades, and that they must have through all phases of conflict to be successful. If confirmed, I will ensure U.S. Space Command provides a formidable deterrent against potential adversary aggression while collaborating with the Joint Force, our allies, and partners. I will ensure the command is prepared to win in conflict through the employment of military space power and integrated trans-regional missile defense capabilities. And I will assure the command is postured to gain and maintain space superiority to assure freedom of action in space and to protect the joint force and our allies from the space capabilities of potential adversaries. The source of strength of any military formation is our people. Our joint space warfighters are the best in the world because of their expertise, dedication, and collective innovation. Leadership of America's military sons and daughters is a most sacred trust. If confirmed, it will be my distinct honor and solemn duty to lead the 18,000 patriots of U.S. Space Command. Distinguished members of the committee, thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General. Gentlemen, I have a series of questions that are asked of all nominees. You may respond appropriately together. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes.
Yes, Chairman.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No, Chairman.
No.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes, Chairman.
Yes.
Do you agree, when asked before this committee, to give your personal views, even if your views differ from the administration?
Yes, Chairman.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requestor regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes, Chairman.
Yes.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes,
Yes.
Chairman.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes,
Yes.
Chairman.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for the testimony or briefings?
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you, General. Guillot, you've talked about the evolving threats that are facing the homeland. Could you give us an idea of what are those most significant threats you see right now?
Yes, Chairman. The most significant threat that the homeland faces is no longer from a single capability or a single nation, but it's the compilation of multiple actors that can threaten the homeland from multiple avenues of approach and across all domains. So the combination of all of those simultaneously is the biggest threat that we face now, whereas in the past it may have been a single weapon system or a single actor that presented that threat.
Do you think we're appropriately postured to deal with these threats?
Yes, Chairman, I do. However, our adversaries are growing at a very fast rate, and we need to do, across the whole of government, all of our effort must be to keeping pace with the rate of change of our adversary.
Do you have any specific changes in mind, if confirmed, of what you'd like to do for, say, your first 180 days?
Chairman, if confirmed, I will largely follow the outstanding course that's been set by General Van Herk, focusing on defending the homeland. And in the first few days, as you mentioned, my goal to make sure that there are no gaps in the transition of authorities that the commander must take to defend the homeland. And I'd also like to strengthen the network. Everything that we do in NORAD and NORTHCOM requires partnership, and I'd like to strengthen the networks with other combatant commanders, the services, National Guard, the interagency, international partners, and of course Congress, to make sure that all those relationships are set now in steady state so we can easily enact those in times of crisis. And then I will conduct a 90-day assessment of our people, our mission, and our resourcing to ensure that we're set for the changing environment that we see ahead.
Thank you. General Whiting, what is your assessment of the threats to the United States and allied space assets by Russia and China over the next 5 years, and what must we do to counter those threats?
Thank you for that question, Chairman. Certainly, we have seen a rapid increase, particularly from China, as they've built counter space capabilities after After really studying the United States and how we leverage space for military advantage, and so they have sought to build a series of capabilities from non-destructive to destructive to hold at risk those space capabilities. We've seen Russia do that to a lesser degree as well, and Mr. Chairman, it is our responsibility across the national security space enterprise, but certainly if confirmed at U.S. Space Command, to make sure that we can operate in the face of those threats that we now see, to continue to support the rest of the joint force with the space capabilities that they've become dependent upon.
Thank you. We are developing the technologies, and one of the key is continuous encrypted communication. Can you give us a sense of where do you think we are in that process?
Yes, sir. It is vital that we have the capability to encrypt ourselves with encryption that will last over decades as we field military space systems that last for a long time. We want to make sure that that encryption does not become compromised by other countries potentially. And so it's a very important partnership, Mr. Chairman, that we have with the National Security Agency. And if confirmed, I would ensure that we continue to work requirements that laid into those requirement sets that requirement, so that we don't end up in a position where another country could compromise our communications.
Thank you. General Guillot, the issue of fentanyl crossing the Mexican border is one that's a serious crisis in the United States today. You are already, your command is in communication and cooperation with Mexican authorities, the Mexican Army, Mexican Navy. How do you believe you can leverage those military forces to be more effective in disrupting this trade in fentanyl?
Chairman, the drug threat that you mentioned is acute, it's significant, and it's serious. And NORTHCOM's role is, as part of a whole-of-government effort, NORTHCOM provides direct support to the lead law enforcement agency to attack these networks. If I'm confirmed, due to the importance of this mission, as soon as possible after the change of command, I will go down to the southern border and meet with all of not only the U.S. military that are in support of the lead law enforcement agencies, but also with the interagency, the intel community, and the Mexican military partners that we have. During that time, I'll make an effort to gain a greater operational understanding, and then I will draw an assessment on how we can optimize our support to get after this very serious problem.
Thank you. Thank you both, gentlemen. Senator Wicker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen. General Guillot, I was going to ask the very question that our chairman just asked about the fentanyl crisis. I view it as a very serious matter, and so please understand from the chair and the ranking member where we rank that issue. Let me ask you, you mentioned domain awareness in your opening statement. We're not where we need to be in domain awareness, are we?
Senator, I agree. Although steps through the government, Congress's funding, and industry were making strides in that direction, the fact that the adversaries we face can attack us from distances further away at speeds, altitudes with maneuverability and low radar cross sections that we hadn't seen in the past, it's a constant fight to have the domain awareness, the ability to detect these threats, and it takes our constant and improving effort, because after all, we can't defeat what we can't see.
You know, it seems to me that the balloon fiasco that occurred several months ago is an example of this. I have a question here which I want to read word for word. Do you commit to sharing information with this committee even when it is contrary to the administration communications objectives? And I ask that question because we on this side have asked some specific questions in writing of the administration and have not gotten all of the answers we needed. And during a visit to Beijing in June, Secretary of State Blinken said publicly that the Chinese balloon matter is a chapter that should be closed. If members of the Congress believe there are questions to be answered, you do commit to answering those questions regardless of the views of the administration, do you not?
Yes, Senator, I absolutely do.
Thank you very much. And let me ask you, I was glad to hear that you and General Whiting were classmates at the academy. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator, although I think he graduated much higher in the order of merit than I
Well,
did.
I was going to ask about that. Did you find that his excellent high school education at Ocean Springs High School in Mississippi gave him a leg up over most of the other?
Senator, I have no doubt that was the springboard.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you're well on your way to confirmation. General Whiting, you're going to be giving up some of your more commercial duties from your predecessor and moving them over to the Department of Commerce as far as space situational awareness. Tell us about that. And I understand you think that's a good idea and that Congress made the correct move there.
Ranking Member, thank you for that question. It's a really important issue. Today, the Space Force provides space situational awareness to the entire world, really. But we do that for non-military purposes. But under your leadership and the actions of Congress, that civil portion of that responsibility is now transferring to the Department of Commerce. And they are very willing partners in that. And we are working a plan with them that over the next couple of years, they will take on that non-military responsibility. And that will free up capacity inside of our military formations to focus on the military unique responsibilities that we have. So we really appreciate that leadership from the Congress and the work of Department of Commerce to take that on.
Okay, now I want to ask a question that will require a relatively brief answer, but then I'll ask you to supplement it on the record. Let's war game in what we can do publicly. Let's say that the Communist Party of China under Xi Jinping decides to invade their neighbor Taiwan. There will be a battle in space almost immediately. Is that correct?
Sir, I agree. We think the opening shots of such a war could happen in space or cyber.
Okay. What I'd like for you to do, and I know you only got 38 seconds to speak, but if you could sort of give us an overview briefly and then supplement your answer on the record, sir.
Yes, sir. Because the People's Republic of China has studied how we use space, we do expect that they would try to inhibit our ability to use space the way we would prefer to across the joint force. And Senator, if it's good with you, I'll take you up on your offer and provide additional details.
Absolutely, yes, because it's quite complex and requires more than 5 minutes even. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. Senator Shaheen, please.
Thank you. Congratulations to both of you and your families. Thank you for your willingness to continue to serve this country. Senator Wicker raised the move of the Office of Space Commerce to the Department of Commerce, General Whiting. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, I remember there was some controversy at the time about that decision and a question about whether that was actually going to work. Can you tell us how that's working at this point? I understand that we will have a shortfall in terms of the funding that we were planning to give to them to continue the integration. So where are we in that process, and what do we still need to do?
Yeah, Senator, thank you for that question. I am not aware of the specific funding, exactly where they are in their funding in the Department of Commerce, but I can say that they are an absolutely eager and willing partner. We have multiple engagements from senior leadership down to their tactical level where they have been out to our operating locations where we conduct this mission. They've seen how we do business, and they're partnering with us on their plans for how they move forward. But ma'am, I am just not familiar with exactly where they are in their funding profile.
The Space Command, however, has also created a new commercial integration office to help coordinate commercial space capabilities. Is that correct?
Ma'am, that is correct.
So how do you see that office working with the office in the Department of Commerce?
Yes, ma'am. Inside of U.S. Space Command, that office, Senator, is figuring out ways that U.S. Space Command can take advantage of the incredible capability that U.S. space industry brings us. That will be focused on military unique aspects of obviously our mission. Department of Commerce will be focused on non-military aspects, but I think there will be a chance to partner together so that, for example, the U.S. government isn't paying twice for commercial space situational awareness data that may be useful to both of us.
Thank you. Well, as you point out, commercial space is playing a greater role in what's happening with our military. And we've seen in Russia's war against Ukraine the role of Starlink in how they're operating their military operations. Can you talk about how you see an attack on those commercial operations, how we should view that? Should we consider that an act of war if we see that happening? Where are we in the thinking about how we look at the commercial space operations in connection with what we say about our military space operations?
Senator, that is a topic, obviously, that we're focused on very, very keenly. Inside the Unified Command Plan, where the President gives tasks to each of the combatant commanders, there is a task to United States Space Command to defend commercial space capabilities if directed. So we understand that importance and have put that hook into that mission. I think moving forward, as you said, ma'am, with the Russia-Ukraine, we've only seen the growing importance of commercial space capability. So we must continue to partner with those companies so that they look to build resilience into their systems, and then partner with them that if we do need to actively defend them, we have the communication avenues open to be able to do so.
And have we actually defined what an attack on commercial operations would mean?
Ma'am, I think ultimately that would be a policy question, but we certainly understand what the actions are that would look like, some kind of attack, whether that was jamming or a direct physical attack on a satellite or a ground station.
So we haven't actually, in terms of policy, delineated how we would respond to that kind of a situation.
Senator, I think we have a range of options, but they are not coded that if X happens, then Y will follow. We have to look at each set of circumstances uniquely.
Thank you. General Guillot, how are hypersonic weapons changing the way NORAD thinks about your job?
Senator, I think that hypersonics present the greatest technical challenge that we face today. We're in a three-way race strategically with our two main competitors in hypersonics, both in offensive and defensive capabilities. We're working closely with MDA, the Missile Defense Agency, to develop our own offensive and defensive capabilities to keep pace. If I'm confirmed, I'll be keenly interested in this because as the commander of NORAD, I would be responsible for the integrated tactical warning and the attack assessment of any hypersonic attack on the continental United States. And then we would be using United States Space Command systems to help us get that data. So it's a field that we're watching very closely, and we're in a tight competition with Russia and China.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sheen. Senator Fisher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for being here today. I appreciate your service and the sacrifice and service of your families as well. General Guillot, I've heard extensively from General Van Herk about a requirement for increased domain awareness, whether that's air domain awareness or undersea domain awareness. And I would encourage you, if confirmed, to make use of the unfunded priorities requirements list that's available to you so that you have that process to inform Congress of any capability gaps that you see in this area. You mentioned those earlier, that was something you would look into. So that's a tool that's available to you, and it's very helpful to us. Also, General, over the past few years, we've seen North Korea, Russia, China dramatically expand their nuclear arsenals and develop a wide range of missile systems capable of directly attacking the United States. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for our own defense capabilities, which are failing to keep pace with growing threats. Do you believe that the United States should continue to posture its homeland missile defense capabilities to stay ahead of the North Korean threat?
Yes, Senator, I do.
Should the United States consider adjusting its stated missile defense policy and allow for the possibility of defending against limited missile attacks from either Russia or China?
Senator, that policy, that would, as you stated, that would be a policy decision. But I do think that it's something we should look at based on what we're seeing in Ukraine and the way the Russians are using new weapon systems there, attacking civilian infrastructure. I think although the policy is set and has worked well for years, as our adversaries change their capabilities and the way they employ, I think our military should look at adapting and on a recurring basis assess the policy.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier about monitoring the gaps that exist in the authorities that you're given. Right at this point in time, do you believe that there are any additional authorities or capabilities that NORTHCOM or NORAD missile defense system need?
No, Senator, I don't see any gaps. My goal is just to make sure that due to my new status in the position, I don't let any authorities or gaps that are presently set develop due to the transition.
Okay. General Whiting, to what extent do you believe that space-based capabilities can contribute to our missile defense system?
Yeah, Senator, thank you for that question. They're absolutely vital. It is space that allows us to instantly look around the globe, watch for missile launches anywhere on the globe, and report that in real time to our national leadership. If confirmed, I would have the responsibility of providing that missile warning data to General Guillot so he could make an assessment of whether North America was under attack. So, ma'am, it's absolutely vital.
China tested in 2021 the fractional orbital bombardment system. Do you believe that we should explore the viability of such systems as a means of pacing new and novel threats that this country faces?
Senator, thank you for the question. Obviously, the Wu-14 fractional orbital bomb system is something we are very carefully watching, and we have to be able to track that from launch all the way through to potential impact. I think it's a matter of whether we believe such a system would fill any gaps that we have. That is not something I've looked at, but if confirmed, I would be happy to participate in that and provide my best military advice back.
In this setting, can you tell us the concerns that you may have with not just the abilities that Russia and China currently have, but the direction that they are headed that we are aware of, and how we are preparing to defend against that, to counter it?
Yes, Senator. Certainly, I mentioned that China in particular has rapidly increased their counter-space capabilities, but we also see them making the rest of their military forces more space-enabled to be more precise and more lethal. So it's important that we as a nation have a range of capabilities where we can integrate intelligence, command and control, offense, defense, cyber, joint fires, to make sure that we can protect our joint force from those space-enabled capabilities that they're developing.
And they have dual-use platforms as well, correct?
That's correct, ma'am. We assume anything commercial is dual use from the PRC.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our nominees for your service. I look forward to supporting your nominations. General Guillot, I want to tread a little ground that both the chair and ranking member have with respect to fentanyl. I don't need to ask the same questions, but Senator Ernst and I offered an amendment that was included in the NDA version that's currently pending on the Senate floor to designate fentanyl as a national security threat and to encourage the DoD to be more forward-leaning, first within the U.S. whole of government effort, which has tended to rely pretty heavily on DEA, DOJ, DHS, but we're encouraging the DoD to be more forward-leaning in this fight, both within the U.S. government, but also in tandem with the Mexican military. And I would suspect that responsibility is going to be pretty heavily on NORTHCOM's shoulders. And so with other committee members, we just see the ravages of this in all of our communities. I know you understand that, and we'll look forward, should you be confirmed, to following up and talking about what we might do from the Pentagon side to really energize and amplify the efforts to counter fentanyl coming into the United States. General Whiting, I want to ask you a question about Space Command and our allies. I am very forward-leaning on the AUKUS framework that was announced by President Biden. I'm the chairman of the Sea Power Subcommittee of Armed Services. I think that this partnership, which I hope will be decades-long, offers real opportunity to promote stability in the Indo-Pacific. As you know, Pillar 1 is a pillar dealing with Virginia-class submarines, but there's a broad Pillar 2 that talks about cooperation with Australia and the UK and a whole variety of technologies, whether it's space, cyber, AI, hypersonics. Should you be confirmed, talk to us a little bit about the way you would see that AUKUS framework and how you might use your position at Space Command to work together with these allies, and then just more broadly, our allies. It is a strategic edge that we have over China and Russia, that we have such a network of allies. How should we be thinking about joint activities in the space domain with nations allied with the United States?
Senator, thank you for that question. Space is a team sport, and it takes us and our allies to be the best we can be. In fact, Senator, 33 years ago as a second lieutenant at my first space assignment, the very first non-commissioned officer I ever supervised was a Canadian non-commissioned officer assigned to our unit because of those partnerships. We have a grouping of countries we call CSPO, the Combined Space Operations, and together it's us, it's our Canadian, British, Australian, New Zealand, plus some other countries that are observers that we're asking to come in. In that forum, we're able to coordinate military operations, we're able to coordinate future architectures, policies. We've seen a real value in that as we work together, and in fact, Senator, over the last couple of years, U.S. Space Command has created a named operation called Operation Olympic Defender, where we operate in space with our Canadian, Australian, and United Kingdom allies. So I will, if confirmed, do everything I can to maximize those partnerships because it is an asymmetric advantage for the United States.
And tell me what the acronym CSPO stands for again.
Combined Space Operations.
Great. I'm very glad to hear about that intentional effort to work together with allies. To follow up on an earlier question that Senator Shaheen was asking, space is an interesting domain because of the massive proliferation of commercial satellites in space that can have a security connection to us. She referenced Starlink in Ukraine. Our adversaries may have their own assets in space, but they tend not to have the same amount of government-owned assets, but then private sector assets where they are in at least some collaboration with them. Talk a little bit about how you would see both the opportunities and challenges to work in tandem with our commercial space assets to advance our space capacities.
Yeah, Senator, I like to say we're in the second golden age of space. The first golden age was when Neil Armstrong walked out onto the lunar surface, but this second golden age is really being led by American commercial industry, and it gives us so many untold advantages. We have to maximize that. And over the last 8 years or so out at our Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, we have a grouping there called the Commercial Integration Cell, where we brought in the 10 companies that we contract with the most for capability through the Department of Defense. And in that cell, we share intelligence at the highest level. We get insights into what's happening in their constellations, because we believe if we all have that insight, we operate better together. So that's just one example of the ways that, if confirmed, I would want to continue to drive our ability to leverage U.S. American industry because of the advantages it brings for us.
Excellent. Well, I hope to entertain you at Wallops Island at some point following your confirmation. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Ernst, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, General Guillot and General Whiting, and to your families as well. Thank you very much for being here and supporting these gentlemen. So, General Guillot, we have talked a lot about a number of threats. We've covered China and Russia. We've heard about North Korea's arsenal and how they are outpacing our ballistic missile defenses. A lot of concern out there. And in your policy questions, the advanced policy questions, you stated that a second missile defense site on the East Coast is, quote, not operationally required at this time, end quote. So what advancements in adversary capabilities would lead you to reevaluate this assessment? What should we be watching for?
Senator, I understand that the assessment was recently made and said that it's not operation required at this time. But from my perspective, if I'm confirmed coming into the position, all military operations require depth and dispersal, and we have to keep pace with the threat. And I do not question the assessment that was made, but it was a different context and a different threat at the time of the assessment. So if I'm confirmed, I would support recurring assessments that would ensure that we keep pace with the adversaries. Specific to your question, the number of threats that they have that might defeat the total number that we have in our existing locations, or if another rogue state develops the capability and can attack the homeland, that's another reason I think that we should look at the reassess on a periodic basis to ensure that we can keep pace with that threat.
I appreciate that answer very much, and I, in my estimation, that would be the correct answer, is we have threats that change, grow, morph over time, and it's important that we continually reassess that. We have heard also from a number of my colleagues about the southern border, and obviously that is a huge concern with all of us. Senator Kane and I are working together on an amendment for the NDAA, and that would improve our mill-to-mill cooperation with the Mexican authorities to counter fentanyl. And we've also seen a number of National Guard troops that we have used on our southern border, and I'd like to focus on that just for a second. I've traveled a couple times to the southern border, and every time I'm there, I have the opportunity to meet with from different states and, of course, Texas. Those that are assisting with the civil authorities, I think we have about 2,500 National Guard. So how does defense support to civil authorities fit in those priorities as commander?
Senator, it's right at the top, because border security is national security, and national security is a key element of homeland defense. And so what you just described would be in the number one priority that I think the command would have if I'm confirmed. And strong support within the authorities given by the Secretary of Defense to Department of Homeland Security would be a top priority of mine.
Very good. And how would we use those reserve forces, whether it's National Guard or reserve units? How can we continue to support the mission without hurting their readiness?
Senator, so many of the missions that the NORAD and NORTHCOM conduct are with National Guard forces, and they're all extremely capable, extremely disciplined, mission-focused. I don't think that the NORAD and NORTHCOM could do their important mission without the support of the National Guard. Some of the actions that they conduct, for instance, in the southwest border, actually build some readiness, aviation, for example, but there are some where they lose readiness in their wartime mission. So if I'm confirmed, I would establish a routine reporting process with the deployed commanders to see where they feel they have lost readiness in specific worldwide deployment areas, and see if we could give them training opportunities while they're on the border to maintain those. Certainly they need to keep readiness in their current missions, but their long-term readiness would be very important, and I think we need to find ways that they can keep their worldwide deployment readiness while they're conducting the Southwest Border mission.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And General Whiting, because I am out of time, I will submit a question for the record that deals with our cyber and our special operations forces and space triad. It's of great interest to those that are working in Special Operations Command. So appreciate you, gentlemen. Thank you very much, and congratulations on your nominations.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. Senator Hirono, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to both of you and welcome to your families. I asked the following two initial questions to address the fitness of any nominee before any of the committees that I sit on, so I will ask the two questions of both of you. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No,
No, Senator. No, ma'am.
Thank you. Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
General Whiting, As space becomes exponentially busier, understanding where satellites are is increasingly important and challenging. The 15th Space Surveillance Squadron in Maui does this important work while simultaneously conducting leading-edge research. However, they are hamstrung by aging infrastructure. And for your information, the 15th Space Surveillance Squadron operates several telescopes on Haleakala, Maui, that tracks satellites and in partnership with the University of Hawaii conducts research. It is here that a mechanical issue in a backup generator caused about 700 gallons of diesel fuel to spill after a lightning strike caused electrical grid failures on the summit. And additionally, many of the buildings and telescope domes are leaking and generally in bad shapes. General Whiting, terrestrial infrastructure underpins our space capabilities. How does deferring maintenance at places like the 15th Space Surveillance Squadron impact Spacecom's mission accomplishment?
Senator, thank you for that question, and I've had the good fortune to visit the 15th on Maui multiple times, and as you highlight, they are doing incredibly critical work in our number one priority area, which is space domain awareness. So it is vital that we invest in that infrastructure so that we can ensure that we can continue to provide that mission support. And I appreciate the local leadership on Maui who has worked with us as we've worked to remediate the fuel spill. There's more work to be done there, but we appreciate the advice and counsel that we've received from the local leaders there.
Well, generally, we get to the infrastructure needs when a crisis has already occurred. My question has to do with how we're going to upgrade and prevent these kinds of incidences so that our people on Maui can do their jobs. So I don't think we've put enough emphasis on the need for repairing and maintaining our infrastructure across the DoD, and Spacecom is included in that. So I would request, should you be confirmed, that there be a review and assessment of the infrastructure needs for your command.
Yeah, Senator, thank you, and I do commit to that. And there is right now an effort going on to assess all of our infrastructure across my current command, Space Operations Command, and specifically tie it to our readiness standards. That work is ongoing and will complete here over the next year or two. But ma'am, I absolutely commit to the review you requested.
Thank you. And again, for you, if confirmed, you will assume responsibilities as the Global Sensor Manager for Missile Defense. Do you believe current missile defense policies reflect all global threats and adequately encompass rapidly changing missile technologies? And if confirmed, you will be responsible for missile warning segment sensors and in part for the DoD's space-based command and control systems. Do you think that these acquisition programs, including the dual-use radar requested in this year's budget for Hawaii, are on track and will meet your requirements?
Senator, I think those are critical programs that we have to watch very carefully. It is vital that we continue to provide global missile warning and missile defense capabilities. If confirmed, I will provide my best military advice after looking into those specific programs. I think we have the right investments, but we've got to make sure we execute on the program successfully now.
I've had concerns about missile defense for Hawaii, and as you probably know, HDRH Hawaii was on track, but it is no longer, and so we're looking for some other ways that we are going to make sure that there is a missile warning system that will protect Hawaii. And that also includes some responsibility that you have, General Guillot. So please, for both of you, I would very much appreciate your paying attention to the missile defense needs of Hawaii. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to congratulate both of you gentlemen and your families. I appreciated very much your comments about your families in your opening statements. I think it's a great reminder to Americans that it's not just the people wearing the uniform, it's oftentimes the spouses and the kids behind them who, in my view, have a harder job. So, to them, thank you. General Guillot, you mentioned Canada, which I think might puzzle a lot of people. You have a unique command responsibility in terms of NORAD, which has to be nominated by the president and the prime minister. You want to just mention it very briefly? I have actually a couple questions about Canada.
Yes, Senator. NORAD is a binational command with the United States and Canada, has been for 65 years, and 65 years of defending the homeland side by side.
So Senator Kane mentioned the importance of our allies. I couldn't agree more. It's a giant strategic advantage to our national security. I do want to mention, and it's not always polite, but I'm going to do it here anyways. The Wall Street Journal on July 12th had an editorial entitled "Canada is a Military Free Rider in NATO." Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit that for the record. And it goes on to talk about Ottawa's feeble commitment to the alliance at the Vilnius summit. They should have been put at the kids' table. I was actually at the Vilnius summit last week in NATO. Canada's not even close to its 2% commitment, and it was common knowledge that Prime Minister Trudeau was trying to water down the Vilnius commitment to 2% as a floor, all of which is incredibly disappointing. I hope the Canadians are watching your confirmation hearing. General, you'll be working closely with Canada if confirmed. Can you commit to this committee that you can have discussions with the Canadians and say, hey, look, when you're not supporting NATO, when you're not supporting missile defense for North America, it's actually harmful to the alliance. Americans get frustrated when our allies don't pull their weight. And with regard to NATO, Canada is not even close to pulling its weight. Can you commit to us to have those tough conversations, but important, with your Canadian counterparts?
Yes, Senator, you can count on me to do that.
Thank you. That's really important. You're both Air Force Academy grads, which is great. I'm sure the Air Force Academy is very proud. We're proud. It's awesome. As you know, the father of the Air Force, Billy Mitchell, had a very famous quote. He said, it was actually in front of an armed services hearing in 1935. He talked about one place that actually wasn't a state yet in America, and he called it the most strategic place in the world. Whoever holds this place literally holds the world. Okay, now you guys are Air Force Academy grads. That's the father of the U.S. Air Force. What place was Billy Mitchell referring to?
Alaska, Senator.
Alaska. General, are you good to go with that?
I'm familiar with that, Alaska.
Would you
yes, sir.
confirm that that was Alaska? Good. You passed the test. Thank you. Now, in all seriousness, two issues I just want to talk briefly about Alaska. We talked about domain awareness. General Van Herk's been great on domain awareness. But when it comes to domain awareness, whether it's hypersonics or cruise missiles or balloons, where are they? What's the avenue of approach if our adversaries are going to attack New York City, Miami, Chicago? It doesn't matter. Where are they coming through?
Senator, almost any avenue of approach to the homeland comes over the Arctic.
Right. So when we talk about domain awareness, where do we need to beef that up in particular?
Senator, first and foremost, it needs to be the Arctic.
So America's an Arctic nation because of what state?
Alaska.
So when you're
Senator.
talking about beefing up in the Arctic, you're talking about beefing up in Alaska, correct?
Yes, sir, and to your previous point, to talk to our Canadian counterparts
Yeah,
about
and
placing
hopefully they'll
some-
pay for that, right, at some point.
radars there as well.
Yeah, they're not very good at paying for missile defense either, even though we protect the whole North American continent. Let me ask a final question. With regard to the Arctic, we have huge strategic interests as a country in the Arctic. Natural resources, transportation routes, strategic locations, mentioned the environment, people. The NORTHCOM commanders, in my experience, have gone from, you're the advocate for the Arctic, have gone from essentially disinterest when I got here 8 years ago to increasingly strong interest. I think General Van Herk's done a great job. And yet, the Pentagon has been the one agency in all of Washington, D.C. that, in my view, has kind of not really focused. So the reason America and our national security and even the Pentagon are now focusing in the Arctic is almost all from this committee, where we have put it every year in the NDAA, including this requirements. Hey, guys, wake up. Pentagon, wake up. We got big strategic interests in the Arctic. Last year, Senator King and I got the Arctic Security Initiative in. Pentagon fought that, by the way. Icebreakers, ports in Nome, all these presents resources, issues we put in, not the Pentagon. So can I get your commitment to work with this committee to be 110% focused on the Arctic? To be honest, it's been a little tiring to have to go to the Pentagon and say, hey guys, focus here. Well, we're not really focused here. Then we put it into law. It would be better if you guys could help us. And again, General Van Herk's been great, but can you continue that commitment to work with this committee on the critical issues in the Arctic, particularly as deals with Russia and China?
Senator, you have my commitment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. Senator King, please.
Well, first, I want to associate myself with that series of questions about the Arctic. It was a question of whether or not Senator Sullivan and I, who would go first to ask the Arctic questions. He's asked them. I would also have to respectfully point out that if our beloved Chairman John McCain was here, he would point out that Billy Mitchell was later court-martialed, but we won't go into that.
I think that was rescinded later after he.
General Whiting, it's been U.S. policy for as long as anybody can remember to not militarize space. But that train has left the station, has it not? Haven't the Chinese and to a lesser extent the Russians developed the capacity for offensive weapons in space?
Senator, they absolutely have.
And therefore, we need to be in a position to respond because the cornerstone of our entire defense national security policy is deterrence. And if they have an asymmetric advantage that we can't hold them at risk, doesn't that undermine our policy of deterrence?
Senator, it does.
And so we're going to have to put aside the laudable policy because of a change of circumstance. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator, and I think the creation of United States Space Command just under 4 years ago, and then by the action of the Congress, the creation of the United States Space Force just under 4 years ago recognizes that new reality.
And I think my concern is that there are areas of the federal government that haven't quite gotten there, and I think we need to understand that, not because we want to militarize space, but because we have to face the reality and the undermining of our deterrent capability if we don't match that. General Guillot, since we've been talking almost exactly an hour in this hearing, 12 Americans have died of drug overdoses. We are under attack, and it's in large measure in your AOR. It's not a nation state, but these international organizations. Talk to me about a strategy for dealing with this. We've been having hearings year after year. We don't have sufficient ISR. We don't have sufficient interdiction capability. When are we going to take this seriously for what it is, which is an attack on the people of this country?
Senator, the threat you described is acute, it's serious, and it's very significant. As if I'm confirmed to be the NORTHCOM commander, I will immediately, upon taking change of command, go down to the border, meet with all of the U.S. forces that are in direct support of the lead law enforcement agencies conducting this mission, and make an assessment on what we can do to optimize our presentation of force and make suggestions to the Secretary
Well,
along
part
those
of it
lines.
is advocating in a vigorous way for additional ISR, for example. I mean, and plus, we've had testimony before this committee from Southcom that we're only able to interdict 25% of the drug shipments coming by sea that we know about. In other words, we know they're coming, we know that they're carrying deadly cargo, and yet there are not enough ships, there are not enough capacity, Coast Guard, Navy. It just seems to me everybody's pointing at everybody else. Please, I would urge you to develop a special task force, a strike force, to really think about how to organize the United States government response, because what's come through to me is a lack of central authority, and you're the nearest thing to that, and I hope you will really get on this. September 11th, we lost over 3,000 people, turned our society upside down. Here, we're losing 100,000 a year, and yet nobody seems to be in charge. Will you take charge?
Senator, I will take charge of assessing that from the DoD standpoint and forwarding those recommendations.
Now, let me change the subject again, to get back to the Arctic, one of the realities, again, it's like my questions about space. It's no secret that the Russians have essentially remilitarized the share of the Arctic, which really was a much more peaceful area prior to the last 10 years. Don't we need some capacity, infrastructure in the Arctic, a port, for example, to be able to field the kind of force that's necessary, again, for deterrence? This is not about offensive capability, but the best way to prevent a war is for your adversary to know that they will suffer unacceptable results if they attack us. Talk to me about infrastructure in the Arctic, for example, a port in Nome.
Senator, presence is the best form of deterrence in the Arctic. The Port of Nome is a game changer for operations in the Arctic. I understand that it's underway, and we're looking at 2027, 2028 for completion of that. But just that port alone will add 4 to 8 days per operational sortie of our ships, where they don't have to go down to Dutch Harbor to refuel. They can stay up in the high north. So that infrastructure, and then the recurring presence of forces training and operating in the high north in Alaska, I think is a very strong deterrent to our adversaries up there.
Well, both of you are taking on extraordinary responsibilities at an extraordinary time. Congratulations on your appointment. We look forward to your confirmation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Tuberville, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to both of you being here today. Good to meet with you in my office, and congratulations and welcome to your families. General Guillot, several conversations with General Van Herk over the last few years. He talked about Northcom's need for more assigned troops. And I know you're coming from another command, but have you had conversations with him about your possible move to the commander of Northcom?
Senator, I haven't talked with him directly about that, but in the function of my current job, I'm in several video teleconferences with General Van Herk and other leaders where the topic you mentioned is discussed.
Yeah, I would hope you'd get back with me on that once you're assigned to that, and let us know what we need to do to help. As you've heard today, a lot of questions have been about certain things that's killing our people in this country and not overseas. So thank you for that. General Whiting, I'm not going to make a long dissertation about this, but of course, Space Command is very new, and we in Alabama and Huntsville are excited about Space Command being assigned to Huntsville and Redstone Arsenal after 21 different criteria. A lot of things were gone through and with a fine-tooth comb, and we were excited about that. But you know, unfortunately, politics has got involved, and that's not you. But you know, for a few months now, I've heard nothing but because of some things that I'm involved in about readiness of our military. It's been 3 years, and we do not have a permanent home yet for Space Command, and it's a shame that we've gotten into politics. Of course, it's moved slow up here, but even for Washington, it's very slow for this to have happened, to us have a permanent home for Space Command. So hopefully we get that done in the near future. But I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. How's Space Command doing in regard to its workforce? I know you've been there for a while, and what do we need to do to improve? Because it's very new to our country and for the world.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I appreciate you highlighting our workforce, because despite the incredible space capabilities and satellites we bring and our rockets, it is our people that are our most critical asset. And we have to ensure as a nation that we have military and civilian who want to join our space enterprise, national security space enterprise, and are willing to be a part of that. So I think it's important that we invest in those STEM activities that inspire our young men and women to join into space. And then I think we have a unique opportunity, given all the great things that commercial industry and NASA are doing right now, to leverage that excitement to bring these young men and women into our organizations.
How big a role does cyber play in SpaceCom, and what are we doing to make sure that we we have enough. One of my sons is in cyber, and but it's very new and it's very complicated. What are we doing to make sure we have enough people to be involved in what we do in Space Command through cyber?
Senator, I like to say that the soft underbelly of our space capabilities is cyber, because our networks, our space networks, truly are global in nature, but they also reach out to 22,000 miles above the Earth's surface to geosynchronous orbit. And that creates a lot of novel cyber attack surface. And so while potential adversaries like Russia and China could attack us in the space domain directly, they would rather attack us in the cyber domain because it's cheaper for them and it's harder for us to attribute. So we must work, if confirmed, I must work with the services, and in particular U.S. Space Force, to execute the excellent plan they've laid in place to pivot hundreds of Guardians into the cyber defense workforce to defend our space capabilities from cyber attack.
Have we done any studies to where we stand with other countries, even our allies, in terms of cyber, the education part? Where do we stand? We good, bad, indifferent?
Senator, I believe the United States is at the absolute forefront of cyber capability, and if confirmed, I would look to work with U.S. Cyber Command on ensuring that we're leveraging all of that partnership work they do with others to best defend U.S. Space Command in the cyber domain.
One last question. What's our top threat in space theater right now? What would be your thoughts?
Senator, our top threat is the growing Chinese counterspace capabilities, both from reversible threats like jamming all the way up to the direct ascent ASATs and laser capabilities we've seen them testing.
Thank you. Thank you, and good luck to both of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Tuberville had some good questions for the two generals. Let me point out, though, that both General Whiting and General Guillot said, if confirmed, a number of times in your testimony. And the roles that you are going into are so critical for our national defense. But the if confirmed is certainly in question because of Senator Tuberville's holds on these promotions and these positions that I imagine would still be in place. So I think that's important to note here. General Guillot, welcome. And General Whiting, welcome to the hearing here. General Guillot, I believe you grew up in Tucson, Arizona, where Gabby and I live, and we talked about that in my office a couple weeks ago. Like Senator King and many others on this committee, I'm very concerned about transnational criminal organizations and the flow of drugs across the southern border, fentanyl poisoning our communities. Senator King asked about this, but I want to just get down to some resources you think you may need in your new position here. Do you anticipate needing more staffing, more authority, more funding?
Senator, I agree on the severity of the threat and the need for us to use any means available to stop that threat from coming across our border. If I'm confirmed, and when I go down to the southwest border and everywhere from California all the way to Texas and look at each site, things that I'll be looking for not only are what are we doing today, but what could we be doing in terms of ISR, the types of forces that we're using in supporting the lead law enforcement agency. And then if I see anything in terms of numbers, authorities, anything along those lines, or types of help, that's what I will report back to the Secretary of Defense.
All right, thank you. And General, also, related to ISR sort of domain awareness, Senator Budd and I introduced legislation called the SOAR Act. We hope to move this in the FAA reauthorization bill. This is bipartisan legislation that will ensure that these high-altitude balloons that are released rather frequently for scientific purposes and other purposes have transponders so they can be tracked and identified. And it'll take a little bit of the workload off of Northcom. But it'll also allow you to act more quickly to identify any activity that could be a threat if it doesn't have a transponder on it. What could you, as the commander of NORTHCOM, what would you do to further improve domain awareness over the NORTHCOM area of operations?
Senator, the first and I think most important step to improving domain awareness would be to ensure that we have the types of radars and the locations needed to cover all the avenues of approach that are now vulnerable to the homeland, and to ensure that the systems are the types that can detect the new and emerging threats that our competitors are building. Higher speed, all altitude, maneuvering, low radar cross-section types of threats that we can build into a network. And the next important step, Senator, would be to bring all those back to our command center on a single pane of glass that we can not only look at in NORAD and NORTHCOM's headquarters, but share with all the other combatant commands like EUCOM and INDOPACOM, so it's a seamless picture of the threats that we face across all combatant commands.
All right, thank you. And just one comment about the SpaceCom headquarters. So, you know, it's imperative that we get a decision on where SpaceCom is going to be located. I mean, this has gone on too long. These decisions impact our members, their families, local communities. It impacts the mission and the national security of the United States. So we shouldn't let indecision, bureaucracy, and politics impact our national security like this. So especially on a mission set that's as critical as managing the space domain that underpins our defense, and an area where our adversaries are investing heavily in. So, you know, my hope is that we get a resolution on where SpaceCom is going to be headquartered. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Great. Thank you. First, I want to thank both of you for being here. Congratulations on your nominations. Thank you for your service, and I want to thank your families for what they do. I'm sure you guys have moved a lot. Hopefully you've spent a lot of time in Florida. Communist China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and other terrorist groups want to harm the United States at any cost in any way they can. They all possess ballistic missiles and will do anything they can to harm us and our national interest here in the homeland and in space. I know you're both focused on deterring these threats, and if they ever try to attack us here at home, to defeat whatever they throw our way. I look forward to hearing about how you're going to continue to make sure we stay safe. John Guillot, as our strategic focus shifts from the threat of terrorists to threats from adversarial nations like Communist China and Russia, NORTHCOM will still have to defend the homeland from both. I would characterize our reaction to the Chinese spy balloon incident as pretty bad, terrible. What have you learned from that, and how will you handle the next spy balloon when you are the commander?
Senator, I was not personally familiar with all the factors that went into the first decision, but what I can tell you that if confirmed, air sovereignty will be the cornerstone of the NORAD and NORTHCOM mission. And if confirmed, I will aggressively execute all the authorities and the ROE associated with maintaining air sovereignty of the U.S. That goes to early detection, making decisions that within my authority, and then quickly passing all of the valuable information and options to my senior leadership if it's something that's beyond my authority.
Thank you. From a strategic and resourcing standpoint, how is defending the homeland from terrorists and defending it from adversarial nations different?
Sir, Senator, they certainly overlap. Deterring from terrorist threats that are originating overseas, other combatant commands like the one that I'm presently proud to work in, Central Command, in cooperation with Southern Special Operations Command, are doing a lot of work to keep the terrorists as an away game. But as we start to develop indications that they could be working towards the U.S., then it transitions to a strong partnership from NORAD and NORTHCOM with the law enforcement agencies that would be responsible, along with the Department of Homeland Security, to building that barrier from them actually entering the United States.
Thank you. What additional authorities or resources do you anticipate needing to defend our homeland?
Senator, at this time, I do not know of any, but I pledge to the committee that if I'm confirmed, within 90 days, I'll have completed a full assessment of all the people, the mission, and the resourcing, to include authorities associated with NORAD and NORTHCOM, and I will make it very clear in that assessment if there are any authorities that I need.
Thank you. In October 2018, Department of Defense deployed 5,200 troops to the southern border in response to migrant caravans. Currently, the Biden administration has authorized a maximum of 2,500 troops in the southwest border support operations. The past year has continued to witness a surge in migrant encounters and estimate there's about 1.5 million getaways, some of them possibly terrorists. Would you first off agree there's a crisis at the border? You assess that there is a drug smuggling emergency at the southern border. What role do you anticipate North Carolina playing in addressing this emergency?
Senator, I think border security is national security, and that would be the #1 priority for me if I'm confirmed as the commander of NORAD and NORTHCOM. As for the drugs and the efforts of the transnational criminal organizations, that is a problem that's acute, it's significant, and it's extremely serious, and it falls into the same responsibility that I just mentioned.
Thank you. General Whiting, congratulations. You have a base named after you in Florida already. You've done really well. Do you believe that delaying the Space Command headquarters decision has affected readiness?
Senator, that decision needs to be made so that we can decide where that's going to go and place it. I think till now, that headquarters has been maturing from what I've seen, but a decision is needed.
So what are the biggest challenges SpaceCom's facing in addressing threats in space over the next 2 years? And how do you plan to address them? And have you spent any time thinking about what happens when they start, whatever adversary starts shooting up satellites and we get all the debris going there, and how it's going to impact our communication?
Senator, the answer to those two questions are related. The #1 thing we need to continue to build out is our space domain awareness capability. We have the best in the world, and the world looks to us, but we have to continue to improve that to maintain custody of the threats we now see. And Senator, we want to avoid a future in which we do see that proliferation of debris because of anti-satellite capabilities. But if that were to happen, it would be our responsibility to quickly track that debris cloud and make sure we're providing warning to those individuals, units, companies that own those satellites so that we can mitigate that debris. But we do not want to see that happen, and which is why we must deter that from happening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. General Guillot, General Van Herk has stated that our country is under attack every single day in the information and cyber domain. Our critical infrastructure providers on which we rely to execute NORTHCOM's mission are key targets for threat actors. How do you envision coordinating with both DHS and CISA to protect our critical infrastructure? Can I have your commitment to directly collaborate with them and other sector management agencies in order to protect critical infrastructure and ensure you can execute your mission? And will you report back to this committee if you encounter issues in that effort?
Yes, Senator, you have my commitment not only to work in the manner that you described, but also to report back.
And do you have any ideas about how you will implement that coordination?
Senator, I would like to first get to know all the counterparts. As you mentioned, there are several that have overlapping responsibility for protecting defense critical infrastructure. I would work very closely with Cyber Command Commander, if I'm confirmed, as well as Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and another of others. But more than just meeting them and talking to them, I'd like to propose with them a series of high-level tabletop exercises that really push and pull at the seams of where one's authorities may start and another agencies may stop, because there's a lot of gray area in critical infrastructure. If it's owned and operated by DoD, if it has heavy DoD influence in our mission. And I think that we need to have strong exercises and discussions that are really going to pull at those seams to ensure that they can hold during a crisis.
I would urge you to do those tabletop exercises. We do tabletop exercises with regard to China, with regard to Taiwan, but the scenario of the first 3 months of that is almost all cyber. And so I want to know what you're going to do every day during that first 3 months, because it's not kinetic activity that you are going to be managing. It's going to be how do we make sure we can do the work we need to do if things escalate. So
I
it's
agree,
really
Senator.
important. I'm grateful that you're focused on that. We've talked in the hearing about domain awareness. One of our biggest challenges in domain awareness is the space between commercial airspace and space. And we saw that with the Chinese spy balloon. So I think having domain awareness and focusing on how you're going to increase your domain awareness so that our pilots can operate safely, so that we understand if we are being spied upon by adversaries is essential. And in that regard, can I have your commitment to collaborate with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office to ensure that they have what they need to identify and resolve reports of UAPs in U.S. air?
Senator, you have my commitment. I've read a little about Aero. I know that General Van Herk is consulting with them, and I look forward to the opportunity.
And undersea domain awareness is also critical for our national defense. Recent public reporting indicates that the Russian Navy is repainting its ships to confuse or fool tracking systems that rely on artificial intelligence. If confirmed, will you help this committee understand the complexity of ongoing threats and the ways that developing technology can help or hinder our defense systems?
Yes, Senator, you have my commitment.
Thank you. General Whiting, the PLA's, quote, lectures on the science of space operations, its authors describe an overawing space strike that includes both a soft strike option focused on information attacks, EM spectrum operations, cyber attacks, and hard strike options that involve strikes against vulnerable enemy positions. From your perspective, what are the miscalculation risks when a country's space studies documents include the execution of offensive strikes as part of their deterrence options? And how does this impact your thinking about the resiliency of the systems that would be under your command?
Senator, thank you for that question. Of course, when we see those kind of writings, we have to take them at their word that that is potentially within their plans. And so deterrence is built upon a framework of, number one, we must have capabilities that deny potential adversaries the benefits of such an attack. Secondly, we must have capabilities that allow us to impose costs in response to such an attack. And then finally, that we have to clearly communicate that. So I support the effort of the Space Force to re-architect our current satellite constellations to be more resilient against those attacks, but we also need those range of options so that we can bring intel, cyber, offense, defense, command and control, joint fires together to also hold at risk those space capabilities of potential adversaries.
Thank you. Last month, Spacecom announced its authorities to conduct missile defense led to some confusion about Northcom, Stratcom, and Spacecom's different but related responsibilities to conduct homeland missile defense. If confirmed, you will be responsible for operating the missile warning satellites, while General Guillot will be responsible for warning America's leaders in the event of a missile threat. Can you commit to work to ensure that Spacecom's and NORAD systems will be integrated and that you will work closely together to protect national security?
Yes, Senator, I commit to that.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Kramer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Congratulations to both of you, generals and your families. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your willingness to step in the gap and into these very important positions. Since we've been talking a lot about domain awareness, I'm going to just stay with the theme, but maybe get a little bit specific. My first question is one that I didn't come in here anticipating, but I think is relevant, and probably start with you, General Whiting. Over the last several years, we've had a lot of discussion and obviously noticed that the Air Force has been shedding quite successfully a lot of its legacy ISR, airborne ISR missions and equipment to afford new stuff. Makes perfect sense. My concern has been that while they live with and plan for the promise of space being able to handle ISR for the combatant commanders, wherever they may be, whether it's the southern border or CENTCOM, you name it, that a gap could very well occur where there won't be adequate ISR. At what, presuming for a moment that space can do that at some point, what's your comfort level that space can unilaterally handle the type of ISR that today Global Hawks and others, MQ-9s and others are able to provide?
Yeah, Senator, thank you for that question. ISR from space brings us untold advantages. For example, satellites, as they orbit the Earth, don't go through sovereign airspace. We can freely overfly any point of the Earth and get those, get that intelligence that we need. I think it's a layered need for systems as we move forward. There will be need for ground-based ISR capabilities, sea-based, air-based, and space-based. But I am supportive of doing the reviews to move as much to space as we can while leveraging the unique attributes that the other domains can bring as well.
Very good, thank you. Since you brought up layers, I'm going to ask about the Space Development Agency's, tracking layer program that's going to be operated out of the Grand Forks Air Force Base. First of all, are both of you familiar with it, and how do you see, I'll start with you, General Guillot, NORTHCOM, NORAD integrating SDA into your awareness?
Senator, as you alluded to, domain awareness, certainly in the sensing grid, takes a variety of sensors. I look forward to bringing those in, that capability, as well as the space-based long-term persistence that General Whiting mentioned for space to complement the other terrestrial systems that we're using now or bringing online here in the near future.
So bringing up one more legacy domain awareness that I'm familiar with, of course, we're very pleased with the legacy of the Parks radar at the Cavalier Air Force Space Force Station now. We'll look forward to having you up there sometime after you're confirmed, which I'm confident will be soon. But maybe each of you could share a little bit about the importance of that Parks radar over the years and decades, and of course it's expanded its role from missile defense or missile awareness to space, obviously just monitoring a lot of stuff in space. But that's one of those legacy systems that we don't know the lifespan of. What are the modernization opportunities, efforts? I'd just be interested in both of your opinions on Parks and its importance and how we can extend it.
Senator, Parks at Cavalier is an essential part of the NORAD sensing grid that we've been talking about. And specifically, it provides the integrated tactical warning and attack assessment capability for the NORAD commander to use to decide if a threat is a threat to North America. So upgrading that radar and several just like it that we have across the network is extremely important to complement the new systems that are coming in to make sure that that sensing grid can reach out and get all types of threats in all domains.
General Whiting.
Senator, just building on that, I've had the good fortune to visit Cavalier multiple times during my career, was just there last September, and General Guillot mentioned it's vital to our missile warning capabilities. But as you alluded to, it's also vital to our space domain awareness capabilities. Its unique position pointing north allows it to see all of our polar orbiting or all polar orbiting objects. And so it's just absolutely critical for us given its unique location and capabilities. And I expect we'll continue to need that going forward.
Well, thank you to both of you. And I'm not going to test you the way that Senator Sullivan did, but we do think there's some other states that could be important to an Arctic mission as well. But we're all for Alaska too. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kramer. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you to you both for your service and to your families as well. You're both graduates of the Air Force Academy, both class of 1989.
Yes, sir.
Must have been an outstanding class. You must have known each other there, correct?
Known each other a long time. Yes,
and
sir.
You've known each other since then and worked together.
Yes, sir.
So congratulations to you both. I want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. I'm learning about the immense and in many ways uncertain, unknown capabilities of AI in so many different areas, whether it's medicine or environmental concerns, talking about the military, particularly in space. Wonder if each of you could share your thoughts about how you think AI will impact the challenges and work ahead for each of you.
Senator, from NORAD and NORTHCOM position, if I'm confirmed, I look forward to using artificial intelligence to make what we do really well now even better, maybe even easier, and certainly faster. I've seen in my current command under some of the initiatives that General Kurilla has undertaken where we take a situational awareness software, but using artificial intelligence, it can help us find equipment, pieces, targets that the naked eye would take a long time to find, cue us in, and then with a combination of a human on top of the loop, very quickly make an assessment if there's a target there. The speed with which that improves our ability is just phenomenal. Applying another artificial intelligence and machine learning capability to the NORAD Northcom realm that, if confirmed, I would like to see is a program called Pathfinder, which takes radar data that is considered cluttered, that our radars see and throws aside so it doesn't confuse the operator. Those machine learning and artificial intelligence can go through there and find valid tracks that we might otherwise be overlooking that could be a threat to our homeland. We've used, with NORAD and Northcom's permission, we've used those algorithms in the Middle East and run some of the one-way attack that we've had in Iraq and Syria, taken our radar files, run it through that algorithm, and we've been able to see the UAVs that attacked our positions that we couldn't see real time. So that's a couple of examples of ways that I would like to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to enhance the NORAD Northcom mission if I'm confirmed.
Senator, similarly, we have missions that are very data rich. For example, our space domain awareness, we get tens upon tens of thousands of data points and tracks and observations per day. And today it takes our humans kind of slogging through all of that to find what's most important, where are the threats, how do we maintain custody. But artificial intelligence and machine learning can help do that for us so we can stop the humans doing the rote work and elevate them to the more higher cognitive work to focus on those threats and what should we be doing about them. So it's an important capability for us, Senator.
The work that you've described is, in very simplistic layman's terms, screening of information and, in effect, organizing it, making use of, as you say, reams of data. Do you anticipate at some point turning decisions over to artificial intelligence? In other words, there has been discussion about how decision-making by artificial intelligence could be made autonomous, that machine learning could be in control more than it is now.
Senator, I'll certainly look at that in the future, but at this time, I do not see a place where we would take the human off the loop of an important decision. I think it's much better to use those tools to help us with our decision-making and keep the human on the loop.
I agree.
Yeah, Senator, I agree with that as well, that right now our people are still vital for our decision-making, and we want to make sure that any decisions we do contemplate, perhaps looking at machines to make, that's all done in concert with the Department of Defense's ethical AI guidelines.
I think that AI is going to revolutionize a lot of what we do in civilian life, likewise in military work, and I do think at the same time it's important to have controls, countermeasures, and ethical standards that apply, and that's why I've actually proposed an independent entity or body that would establish some rules and guardrails. It's a bipartisan effort, and I hope that the military leaders like yourself will be a part of it. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. General Guillot, first of all, I want to thank you for your service to this nation and congratulate you on your nomination to be the next commander of Northcom and NORAD. And General Whiting, I would also like to thank you for your service to our nation and congratulate you on your nomination to be the next commander of SpaceCom. I would also like to say thank you to your families as well. As you noted, when you have to move, the family moves with you. When you're deployed and they're not with you, that is a sacrifice which they also make. And I would like to thank your families as well for their service to our country. General Guillot and General Whiting, as you know, I've asked every single combatant commander this question with regard to the spectrum. There has been an attempt lately to perhaps sell or auction portions of the S-band, the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz portion of the spectrum, which is one which I believe to be critical for our national defense. But I have asked this, and so far, I have had no one disagree with me that's been in front of this committee, but I'm going to ask both of you, please, how serious is the need for us to be able to maintain control of the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz portion of the spectrum? And how do you view that in your job? And are you aware of the different types of uses for that portion of the spectrum in the defense of our country? And I'll begin with General Guillot.
Senator, I'm keenly aware of the impact that losing or sharing the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz range of the spectrum would bring to the Homeland Defense mission. For example, 3 of the key capabilities that, if confirmed, I would rely upon for Homeland Defense: AWACS, the Aegis cruisers, and the new long-range discrimination radar, which is critical to defeating the North Korean ballistic missile threat, all operate in that range. While I understand that there is a study ongoing, and I look forward to seeing the results of that study, and at that time I'll make my final recommendations, my initial position is that it would have a very significant and damaging effect on Homeland Defense to either lose or have to share that range.
Thank you. General Whiting?
Sir, I completely agree with General Guillot that if this study comes back and says that there will be an impact, we absolutely cannot have a loss of operational capability, and we need to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Are you aware if our adversaries could choose a portion of the spectrum that would impact our national defense, would this be one of those areas that they would love to see us have a reduction in our capabilities in terms of their ability to find ways to aggressively get into the North American air defense area?
Senator, our adversaries are very good at knowing what parts of the spectrum we rely upon and trying to take that away from us. So it would not surprise me at all.
General Whiting?
Sir, I agree with that.
Thank you. Let me ask also, just with regard to cyber and the need for cyber protection, what do you think is the greatest threat that you see with regard to NORTHCOM and the use of cyber activity or the aggressive cyber activities that some of our adversaries are using right now?
Senator, I think the cyber threat to NORTHCOM is the most present and persistent threat that we see today. I've spoken about the totality of the threats in all domains and all avenues of approach, which is certainly the largest concern that I have if I were to take command of NORAD and NORTHCOM upon confirmation. However, the threat that we see today and the most persistent is in cyber.
Thank you. General Whiting, same question.
Yes, sir. For the space enterprise, Senator, the most pressing cyber threats come from state competitors like the PRC, Russia, Iran, North Korea. They would rather take us on in the cyber domain than try to take us on physically in the space domain, although certainly the PRC and Russia have proven they can do that because it's cheaper for them and it's harder for us to attribute. So we must build out our cyber defenses across our space enterprise to protect that soft underbelly from allowing cyber to deny that capability.
Thank you. Thank you both for your service, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rounds. Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. General Whiting, in speaking in support of DEI initiatives, General Brown said that, quote, "There's still a lot to do because this is a cultural shift. This isn't something you can get done in just a couple of years." Do you believe that General Brown should be relieved of his command because of those statements?
Senator, no, I do not.
Okay. General Milley, in speaking in support of DEI initiatives, said, quote, "It's diversity to improve the system, improve the military, improve our problem-solving capabilities, and improve our war-fighting readiness in order to protect and defend the Constitution. That's why it's so important, so fundamental, that we have this as one of our elements as we move forward to continue to develop the joint force," end quote. Do you believe General Milley should be relieved of his command?
Senator, no, I do not.
Do you believe that that's a partisan, do you believe that's partisan political speech?
Senator, no, I do not.
Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Lomar said our DEI industry and trainings we're receiving in the military via the industry are rooted in critical race theory, which is rooted in Marxism. He was relieved of his command for those statements, correct?
Senator, that's correct.
By you, right?
Senator, there were other comments regarding specific political parties that are in addition to what you just quoted.
Okay, this was from the podcast, which was cited by you. So I'm asking, is opposition to DEI partisan political speech?
Senator, no, it's not unless it advocates for a specific political party or candidate.
Okay, well, I would agree with that, but so your testimony today is Lieutenant Colonel Lomar was relieved for something other than these statements on the podcast, or was that part of your consideration?
Senator, it involved a specific quote involving a specific political party.
Okay, in his free time or on duty, or
Sir,
what
it
is
was
the
on a
context?
podcast where he associated himself, or he identified himself as an active duty Space Force officer and commander.
Okay, on that, so there were other comments that, other than this one I read to you about DEI.
Senator, I think that podcast was about an hour long.
Okay, well, we'll follow up with some of our questions. I guess I want to ask you, do you support DEI initiatives in the military?
Senator, I support a ready lethal force that draws from the best talent all across America.
Okay, that's not my question. I support that too, but that's not what DEI is. DEI is rooted in cultural Marxism, so I'm asking you, do you support DEI initiatives in the military?
Senator, I support a merit-based approach to finding the best people across
Okay,
this country.
that's not DEI either. So do you support DEI initiatives in the military?
Senator, based on how it is defined, I want to find the best people across anywhere in this country, geographically or any demographic, who can support the defense of this
Do
nation.
you believe that our brave military men and women should be pitted against one another based solely on their race?
No, sir, I do not.
Do you believe, or do you accept the proposition that General Brown, in his August of 2022 memo, that we should have racial quotas with officer class?
Senator, I am not aware that General Brown has said that.
Okay, if General Brown said that we should have a reduction in the number of white officers serving to 67% of officers, down from whatever, I think it's a total of 5,400 officers, do you support that?
Senator, I support that promotion should be based on merit.
Okay, so you don't support the idea that we would have racial quotas for the officer class?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. I do want to ask you also, what role do you think DEI, or what's your experience? What, firsthand for you, what have you, in these trainings, what have you seen? What have been the trainings that have taken place? I'm not talking about reaching for the best and the brightest. I want to understand, because we have a military recruitment problem, right? And so the issue, I think, is if people view, and this is coming from the Department of Defense, and it's been widely talked about in this committee, if people view that politics is being infused in our military, do you think that that would hurt recruitment?
Sir, I do, and I think the military must be rigorously apolitical and nonpartisan.
Right. Do you think infusing abortion politics into our military hurts our recruiting?
Sir, we in the military should not be partisan or political.
Okay. Do you think infusing COVID politics into our military hurts our recruiting? Meaning, do you think that people should have been fired for not getting the vaccine?
Sir, we are required to uphold a legal order.
Okay. Do you think we should actively recruit those 8,500 people who were fired for not getting the vaccine?
Sir, I would like to see those individuals who can come back apply to come back. Yes, sir.
Do you think we should recruit them to come back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then do you believe that are you familiar with the August memo of 2022 from General Brown?
I am not, sir.
Okay, we'll, in some follow-up questions, ask you your points of view on that.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Mullen.
Thank you for those that are here, and thank you for the family that has come along and supported these two generals here along the way. It's a family affair, and I said this multiple times that no one can do their job at their best ability if things at home are rocky. And so those that are home, that's building that solid foundation for these generals and others that are serving to be at their best. I want to thank you for that, and thank you for the time that you've packed up the houses, moved, and still held the family together. It's a sacrifice for the entire family, and from the deepest part of my heart, I want to tell you thank you so much for that. I'm going to be pretty quick here. just because we're running every which way direction right now. So I've just got questions for Guillot. General, as you know, obviously you spent time at Tinker, which we appreciate that. It's obviously something I'm very proud to be able to represent. I'd like to ask your best military advice on issues you know from your time at Tinker Air Force Base and your long career in the air battle management. The Air Force is in the process of divesting the E-3 fleet and switching to the E-7. The timeline, as it stands now, has us totally divesting the E-3 by FY29. And at that time, I believe we're only going to have 5 E-7 on platforms. Are we concerned about the mission capabilities and the gap that might be taking place at that point?
Senator, thanks for mentioning my time at Tinker. I had 3 assignments there and loved the base, the people, and the mission. And the E-3, I have a lot of experience in the E-3
Right.
all over the world. Great capability, but it does need to be replaced by the E-7, and I appreciate the Air Force and Congress's help in doing that. The gap that you mentioned is similar to the ballistic missile defense gap that we've talked about.
Right.
Has to be managed very, very carefully. So if I'm confirmed as the commander of NORAD and NORTHCOM, that is a key system, not necessarily the E-3, but the airborne early warning capability, whether it's the E-3 or the E-7, would be critical. And I would be very vocal about the requirements and to ensure that we don't drop in capability and create a bathtub that would keep us from doing that job before the new system comes on.
At the current current rate to which we're going, sorry, I didn't have my coffee this morning. At the current rate that we're headed right now, we seem that there will be a gap. And Senator Langford and myself have an amendment in the NDA that hopefully is going to be helpful to fulfilling the mission while we're making the transition to the E-7. And I agree, the E-3 has had a wonderful shelf life and has performed its mission well. And we do need to upgrade, especially for the new threats that are facing us. But we want to make sure that we're not hurting ourselves for national security purposes on the way out the door. At the same time, we don't want to do something that the Air Force isn't on track with too. You know, a lot of times as legislators, we have great ideas, but it's not practical. We want to make sure the amendment we have is actually practical. And so I'd love for you to follow up. And if you're not familiar with the amendment, take a look at it because it's moving now. And so we make sure that we're doing what is mission capable and what you think would be best in line with you too, right?
Yes, Senator, I'll do that.
With that, I'll yield back. Thank you, sir.
Senator Cotton.
Gentlemen, congratulations on your nominations, and thank you for your lifetime of service, and thanks to your families for your service and support to your missions as well. General Guillot, you believe that as part of your mission as the NORTHCOM commander is aerospace control over the continental United States, correct?
Yes, Senator.
Domestically, there are reports of over 57 drone incursions over nuclear sites since 2015 and at least 510 unidentified aerial objects reports since 2004, centered around restricted and sensitive airspace, with around half of those reported in the last 2 years. How do you view NORTHCOM's role in defense against the threat from such unmanned aerial vehicles?
Senator, it is a role, to my understanding, that NORAD and NORTHCOM share with the services that have been delegated authorities around their installations to protect those. And then the NORAD responsibility picks up generally in the airspace structure above those facilities.
Okay. I don't want to go into depth rehashing the Chinese balloon incident from earlier this year, but in general, if a malign actor illegally flies an aircraft over American territory with malign intent, do you believe that we should shoot it down?
Senator, I absolutely believe we should shoot it down if it's demonstrated hostile act or hostile intent.
Okay. Are you aware that there were more than 10,000 violations of our airspace with drone aircraft conducting intelligence operations last year? And given the threat we've seen that drones pose in Ukraine, increasingly in Russia, how significant are your concerns about those violations of our airspace?
Senator, I'm very concerned about any airspace violations. Certainly, the unmanned capabilities that you're mentioning bring a new dimension that we haven't had to see in the recent years. And if I'm confirmed, that would take a great deal of my attention to address that.
Good. The vast majority of those incursions were conducted by Mexican cartels in support of drug smuggling activities. In fact, the U.S. Border Patrol chief has said that we don't have operational control of the southern border. Given how drones are now being used in Ukraine and in Russia, how do you view the loss of operational control at our southern border and the failure to establish aerospace control as a threat there to our ability to defend our homeland and our people?
Senator, I know it sounds trite, but I firmly believe that border security is national security. And if I'm confirmed, the number one priority I would have is to defend the homeland, and certainly border security is at the top of that. So I would be very concerned about any loss of sovereignty in the airspace or the ground of our borders.
Good. Thank you for that. According to DHS data, Customs and Border Protection encounter more than 100 Russians attempting to illegally enter the United States every month near just a single location on the U.S.-Mexico border. Russian military intelligence has more officers deployed to Mexico than any other country in the world. The current NORTHCOM commander has described China and Russia as, quote, very aggressive and active in NORTHCOM. We've seen what happened with the Chinese spy balloon. We know that China is setting up shop in Cuba, which I understand is technically not a part of your area of responsibility, but it's pretty close.
Yes, it is.
In the same way that North Korea and China are in a part of your area of responsibility, but they project threats into that area. How do you view these actions by Russia and China to our south as a threat to our homeland?
Senator, I view the actions you described as a very serious threat, and one that, if confirmed, I will watch very closely. As you alluded to, it's not just in the air that NORAD and NORTHCOM protect the homeland, but also through all domains, including the ground.
Indeed. It's probably the case that Aldrich Ames, for instance, was recruited by Russian intelligence in Mexico City. And we know it's the case that Russian agents stuck a ice pick into Trotsky's head in Mexico. So again, that threat is genuine and real to the United States. One final question. At least 98 terrorists were caught on the southern border last year, and that doesn't include any potential gotaways that we don't know about. General Kurilla said last year it was his commander's estimate that ISIS-K could conduct an external operation against the United States or Western interests abroad in about 6 months, perhaps with little to no warning. 2 years ago, an Iraqi man in the United States hatched a plot to bring ISIS operatives through our southern border to assassinate former President Bush. Given your experience as the deputy commander in the Middle East, can you draw upon that to help secure our southern border from terrorist attack and ensure it does not become yet a new vector for attack?
Senator, if I'm confirmed, I absolutely will draw on the experiences from Central Command, cooperation with Special Operations Command, and then new and lasting relationships with law enforcement agencies here in the homeland to ensure that any of the threats that General Kurilla is effectively addressing overseas do not make it to our homeland.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. General Whiting, I know you're disappointed you didn't get lots of hard questions from me, but maybe next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you, General Guillot and General Whiting, and congratulations on both of your nominations, and great to see you and your families here. Hopefully we can get you through this process and get you into these important positions. NORTHCOM and NORAD and United States Space Command are so critical to our national defense. So I look forward to voting for your nomination in committee and then eventually on the floor of the United States Senate. Thank you, and this hearing's adjourned.